What if the future of the transatlantic alliance depends not just on power, but on tone? At this year's Munich Security Conference, the atmosphere shifted in a way few expected. The U.S. Secretary of State told the audience that America wants to renew and strengthen its alliance with European nations. Marco Rubio said the United States will always be a child of Europe and made it clear that Washington wants to protect and deepen that relationship, not break it apart. His message came after leaders from Germany and France had warned about growing tensions within the transatlantic partnership. Rubio also used his speech to criticize what he described as large-scale migration, arguing that it has cost Western nations heavily. He stressed that strong borders are not about fear or xenophobia, but about national sovereignty. We are looking at live scenes from the press conference where we are expecting to hear from Keir Starmer and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. At the same time, the Chinese Foreign Minister is addressing the media. The focus, however, remains on what was said earlier by Marco Rubio and how it was received in Munich. The tone this year was noticeably different from what many people anticipated. European leaders had prepared themselves for a tougher message. The German Chancellor Friedrich Merz had already spoken about the need for Europe to step up and take greater responsibility for its own security. He warned that Europeans might have to make sacrifices in order to strengthen their defense capabilities. There was a sense that Europe was bracing for pressure from Washington. But the speech delivered by Rubio surprised many observers. It was calm, respectful, and at times even warm. He extended what seemed like an olive branch to European allies. He reminded the audience of the deep historical connections between the United States and Europe. He spoke about shared values, shared history, and shared culture. The tone stood in clear contrast to last year's sharper rhetoric. Yet, if you listened closely, the substance of the message remained aligned with what the Trump administration has been saying consistently. On migration and border control, Rubio was direct. He argued that protecting borders is essential to maintaining sovereignty. He said this approach should not be labeled as hostile or narrow-minded. In his view, every nation has the right and the duty to control who enters its territory. This issue is especially sensitive within the European Union, where free movement across many internal borders is a key principle. Once inside the EU, people can travel freely between member states. That idea is central to the European project. Rubio's emphasis on tighter border control could challenge that philosophy. Even so, the way he delivered the message avoided open confrontation. Symbolism at the Munich Security Conference matters deeply. It is one of the oldest and most important gatherings of global leaders focused on security. Every gesture, every handshake, and every photo sends a signal. Soon, Keir Starmer will appear on stage alongside Ursula von der Leyen. That image alone sends a message that the United Kingdom and the European Union stand united on major issues. In contrast, Rubio stood alone during his address. However, the difference in staging did not overshadow the difference in tone compared to last year. When J.D. Vance spoke at the previous conference, the hall reportedly fell into silence. This year, there were moments of laughter and even applause during Rubio's speech. The mood was more relaxed. The audience seemed more receptive. Still, beneath the lighter tone, serious challenges remain. The war in Ukraine continues. Rubio acknowledged that he is uncertain whether Russia genuinely seeks a ceasefire. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is present at the conference and wants to push forward diplomatic efforts. However, reports suggest that Rubio missed a meeting with European leaders focused on Ukraine. In a setting like Munich, even small details can spark intense speculation. Observers analyze every move and every absence. Behind the public speeches, real negotiations and difficult conversations take place behind closed doors. Those private meetings often shape the true outcomes of such conferences. European leaders themselves appear divided in their approach. French President Emmanuel Macron recently spoke about the need for Europe to be confident confident and proud of its achievements. He urged Europeans to stand up for themselves and take greater control of their destiny. At the same time, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has warned that without strong backing from the United States, NATO's effectiveness would be seriously weakened. This creates a push-and-pull dynamic. Europe wants strategic independence, yet it also relies heavily on American support. Rubio's speech seemed carefully designed to strike a balance. He praised Europe's cultural contributions to the world. He mentioned figures like Shakespeare and Mozart, highlighting the deep cultural roots that connect both sides of the Atlantic. He even joked that thanks to Europeans, America now enjoys better beer. The comment drew laughter and applause. Such light moments helped soften the tougher parts of his message. It felt almost like a love letter to Europe, but one with conditions attached. The core message was clear. The United States values its European allies. It wants to move forward together. However, those allies must be strong and capable. Rubio emphasized that NATO members should increase defense spending. He pointed out that very few countries currently meet the suggested target of spending 5% of their GDP on defense. For many European nations, reaching that level would require significant political and economic changes. The reminder was delivered politely, but the expectation was firm. The Munich Security Conference has always symbolized the strength of the transatlantic bond. Now that bond appears to be evolving. The alliance is not collapsing, but it is being reshaped. There is also another dimension to this story. Several prominent Democrats are attending the conference as well. California Governor Gavin Newsom is present, along with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Their message to European partners is simple. Political leadership in the United States can change. Donald Trump will not be president forever. Future administrations could shift priorities again. This adds another layer of complexity. European leaders must decide how to respond to the current U.S. administration while also thinking about long-term stability. Should they move quickly to adapt to Washington's demands on defense and migration, or should they wait and see how American politics evolves? These questions hang over the conference halls in Munich. In the end, what stands out most is the contrast between tone and substance. The language was softer, the delivery was friendlier, the applause was real, yet the strategic expectations remain the same. Europe is being asked to contribute more, spend more, and secure its borders more firmly. The United States is signaling that partnership continues, but it will be a partnership between stronger and more self-reliant allies. For viewers of Global USA News, this moment highlights a critical turning point in global politics. The words spoken in Munich may shape defense budgets, diplomatic strategies, and alliances for years to come. The smiles and applause tell one story, the policy demands tell another. And as always in international diplomacy, the true impact will unfold not just in public speeches, but in the quiet rooms where leaders negotiate the future of the world.
At the same time, the presence of leaders from across the political spectrum shows that this debate is far from settled. The Munich Security Conference is not just a stage for speeches, it is a testing ground for ideas about the future of global security. European officials are listening carefully, weighing every word from Washington. They understand that the United States remains their most important security partner, yet they also hear the repeated call to take more responsibility for their own defense. This creates pressure on governments that are already facing economic challenges and domestic political debates. Defense spending is not just a technical issue, it is deeply political. Increasing military budgets to reach 5% of GDP would require tough decisions. Governments would need to explain to voters why more money is going to tanks, aircraft, and missiles instead of healthcare, education, or social programs. That is not an easy argument to win. Still, the message from the United States is consistent. A stronger Europe means a stronger alliance. Rubio framed it not as a threat, but as an opportunity. He suggested that a more capable Europe would be better positioned to defend its values and interests. Migration was another key part of the speech. Rubio argued that uncontrolled migration has placed heavy burdens on Western societies. He said strong borders protect stability and national identity. In Europe, this topic remains highly sensitive. Some countries have faced large waves of migration in recent years. Political parties have risen and fallen based on their positions on this issue. By raising it in Munich, Rubio signaled that Washington sees border control as a central pillar of modern sovereignty. He carefully avoided harsh language, but the meaning was clear. Security begins at home. The reaction in the conference hall reflected this balanced approach. There was no dramatic backlash. Instead, there was careful attention. Observers noted that even when Rubio delivered firm points, he did so with measured language. Compared to the previous year's tense atmosphere, the difference was striking. The earlier silence after J.D. Vance's speech had signaled discomfort and division. This year, polite applause and occasional laughter suggested cautious openness. Diplomacy often depends on tone as much as policy. In that sense, Rubio may have succeeded in lowering the temperature without changing the underlying message. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine continues to dominate discussions behind the scenes. Volodymyr Zelensky is pushing for continued Western support. European leaders are debating how long they can sustain military and financial assistance at current levels. The question of whether Russia is genuinely interested in negotiations remains unanswered. Rubio admitted uncertainty on that point. His reported absence from one Ukraine-focused meeting has sparked speculation, but no clear conclusions can be drawn. In gatherings like Munich, every schedule change becomes a subject of analysis. Another important factor is NATO's future. Mark Rutte has warned that without strong American backing, NATO would face serious challenges. That reality shapes every conversation in Munich. Europe wants greater strategic autonomy, yet it cannot easily replace the scale of U.S. military power. This tension defines the current moment. The alliance is neither breaking nor fully stable. It is adjusting to new realities. The presence of American Democrats adds further complexity. Gavin Newsom and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are reminding European partners that U.S. politics is dynamic. Elections bring change. Policies evolve. They suggest that Europe should not see current tensions as permanent. This argument offers reassurance, but it also introduces uncertainty. European leaders must plan for the present while preparing for multiple possible futures in Washington. Throughout the conference, symbolism continues to matter. The image of Keir Starmer standing beside Ursula von der Leyen sends a message of European unity. It suggests coordination and shared purpose. In contrast, Rubio's solo appearance highlighted America's distinct voice. Yet his words emphasized partnership rather than separation. That balance between independence and cooperation defines the evolving transatlantic relationship. For global USA News viewers, the key takeaway is this: the alliance between the United States and Europe is not ending, it is being redefined. Washington is asking Europe to invest more in its own security. Europe is weighing how to respond without weakening its internal unity. Both sides understand that global threats are growing. From the ongoing war in Ukraine to broader geopolitical competition, the stakes are high. The Munich Security Conference has once again proven that it remains a central stage for global diplomacy. Speeches capture headlines, but the deeper story unfolds in private discussions and long-term policy shifts. Rubio's address showed that tone can change quickly. Applause can replace silence. Warm words can soften firm demands. Yet the strategic direction remains consistent. Stronger allies, stronger borders, and greater defense commitments are now at the heart of the conversation. As the conference continues, leaders will keep negotiating, listening, and adjusting. The future of the transatlantic alliance will depend not only on what is said in public, but on what is agreed behind closed doors. The world is watching closely. The decisions made in Munich could influence global security for years to come.